Hey everybody, thank you for coming to my talk. I'm Eddie, and I'm doing open source. And Eric just sent all the folks over to the other room in his talk to the Fiddler talk. But Fiddler isn't open source, I learned. So boo for them, yay for you. But I also learned that, well, I don't speak regularly, but I learned that the last talk before the lunch is actually the worst slot to have because you may get grumpy and hungry during this talk. So my motto is, don't complain, fix it. So I have a little fix for you guys. If you would just keep your breath for 15 minutes, then no oxygen will flow to your muscles. That will mean you burn no calories at all. So I would like to do this exercise with you. Breathe in 3 seconds. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. And keep it that way. Thank you. So I've been working with Progress Telerik for 3-4 years now, and I really like working with Bulgarians. But there's one Bulgarian dude I really don't like, and it's actually 11 Bulgarian dudes. But this is the worst. Spasdelev, I guess it's pronounced. This guy scored 2 goals against the Netherlands last March. Who didn't? Yeah. Okay, there was a fellow Dutchman who said who didn't. He's right. We really sucked in the World Cup qualifications for 2018. Bulgaria didn't do much better, but they won this match at least. But yeah, in September we had a little revenge where we won 3-1 from you guys. So, but none of us is going to the World Cup, and the Americans aren't going either. So we're all a bit in the same boat, I guess. Better luck next time. So, talking about open source, I really draw from my own experience. So this is a little disclaimer I have. Don't get offended, it's my opinion. I also have others which I keep to myself. So it's really my experience, and it's incomplete, so you won't get a full overview of everything. And it's really about GitHub, because that's where I do all my work, really. So let's see what companies are doing open source. That's pretty much every company out there, I guess. And yeah, it's really everywhere. I was watching on my TV last week, and I was looking for a software update, but they never update software TV stuff, right? So, but I found this. On the general settings, there was this list of open source packages included in my TV, and I was pretty amazed that there was, this is the scroll bar and the scroll indicator, it's hundreds of open source packages, so I thought that was pretty cool. So it's literally everywhere, and yeah, I guess there's something about open source to say for every letter of the alphabet, and that gave me the idea to do the ABC of open source today. And it's not a, I thought about doing the Cyrillic alphabet because I'm in Bulgaria, but I found out that it's 30 letters instead of 26, and it was enough of a struggle to do 26 letters, so I picked the English alphabet. But still, the Q and the X were a bit challenging, so I get you to anticipate what it would be. So let's start off with the letter A. Open source is really about doing it all together. So if you're a maintainer, you're a user and a contributor as well, and we all need each other. So the users, that's obviously the largest chunk of the users, people in open source, right? And there's also contributors, that's persons who have, well, at least if you have commented on some repository, you're no longer anonymous, so you're already a contributor. And then there's maintainers, of course, and that's the least amount of people. And also read that 93% of NPM packages are actually maintained only by one person. So that was kind of staggering to me. So I was wondering, who of you are maintainers of any open source project? So that's like 10 of you, I guess. And who are contributors? Sorry. Okay, that's indeed a bit more. And who of you are using open source? Yeah, that's almost everybody, right? Nice. So yeah, the B, you already saw it. I think it's, let's skip these transitions, sorry. I think it's burnout, but this is not the really correct slide. I wish it was this. Nice car, by the way, but it's more like this. And I don't mean to say that women are more subject to burnout, not at all, because we're all humans, we have emotions, and everybody is subject to it. And yeah, it can be pretty bad. And I've thought about it a lot lately, because yeah, when you start doing a lot of open source, you get to interact with a lot of people, you get more work on your plate, and not everybody gets paid to do it as well. But I think that the most common cause for burnout in open source is guilt. And I mean, the feeling you get when you don't get to respond to email or open PRs on your repository, then that starts to build up a little bit of guilt. Perhaps you shouldn't feel guilty about it, because it was your project and others start using it and they have an issue with it, they might as well contribute to it, but still you're human, so you still feel the pressure to try and help others, right? So, and also guilt for, well, perhaps not responding to support tickets or Slack messages or whatever. But there's other causes as well, I think. There's, for instance, gamification is I think, quite a big factor. At first, it all seems fun and games, but I think there's also a dark side to this. And GitHub, this was a screenshot of the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, in January last year, where GitHub still had the longest streak indicator at the bottom. So here my longest streak was 20 days, and my current streak is 16 days at the bottom right. And at a certain point of time, I was at a streak of 50 days, I think. And it was 11 o'clock in the evening, and I realized that I didn't push anything to GitHub that day, so I was going to lose my streak. And it was 11 o'clock, I should be in bed, I should be watching a movie with my wife or something, but I actually submitted something to GitHub to get my streak to 51 days. So it's really silly. I'm happy they released that, removed that. And there was also the join date, which you can wear like a badge of honor. I've been doing open source since before you were born. I'm better than you. So, no, they released that. I'm really happy. Removed that. I'm really happy with that. So, yeah, here's a few tips to avoid burnout. Take chill pills. I'm not sure they're legal outside of Amsterdam, so they work for me. But otherwise, yeah, just don't do more than you can, really, because at first, 1, 2, 3 repositories seem nice, but at a certain point of time, issues come in. One of those repositories may become popular. That will all build up and will be a lot of work eventually. So try to avoid doing too much, even though it looks like an easy job at the moment. Take time for other things. GitHub still has these green tiles at the bottom, which you saw on the previous slide, where the top row is a weekend day and the bottom row is a weekend day. You actually want to have those all white, I guess. So try to do fun things with your family, think about yourself, do some sports as well. And this is really hard. Try not to care about other people's problems. You really need to do that. But yeah, I have a hard time doing it, but it's no problem if you just try to ignore other people, but try to, yeah, pick your battles, I guess. So that's maintainer tips for you, and then there's also for users. Never say I need this ASAP, or my boss wants this today, or stuff like that. Yeah, sorry, he's not my boss, come on. Or is this repository abandoned? I particularly hate this one. So I didn't commit anything for 2 months to my repository, but perhaps it's a rock solid thing, it doesn't need attention. But yeah, there was nothing merged in between, so is it abandoned? No, just doing other things, sorry. And yeah, you don't have a service level agreement with maintainers as a user. Perhaps if it's a paid library, you get some more response, of course. And yeah, main thing is try not to make maintainers feel guilty, as that leads to B. So the D of open source, so it's a bit hard for me to make this a nice flowing talk because there's this ABC I need to stick to, but still, donations. I get a little beer money every now and then. And I have about 100 repositories I need to maintain, something like that. They're all not that super popular or anything. But yeah, it's like every 2 months or so I get $5 or $10 beer money. And a lot of promises by guys and girls who say, I like your repository, and if we ever meet in Florence or Mexico or whatever, I will buy you dinner or buy you a beer. And there's actually an OSS license called after that. That's called beerware. I promise to share a beer with you if we ever meet, because I like your library. So donations, that's not the best way to make a sustainable open source life, I guess. So there's other things you can do as well. So you can provide services with your library, or integrate it into your app. Or this is a pretty big one. Webpack is big on this, sponsorship and corporate backing. And personally, I'm also sponsored by Progress, which I'm really happy with. And yeah, premium support. You can, of course, do an SLA with a user, promise to get back to them in 24 hours. I've never done this, by the way, but I know some people are. Give workshops about your stuff. And most popular, of course, presentations like this one get you bucket loads of money. So thank you very much. So the email, please don't. That's the message, really. Never email maintainers privately, because open source happens in the open. So if you email me a problem and someone else has the same problem, they both mail me. I better just put a solution on GitHub, right? So everybody can find it with Google, etc. So, and also, yeah, please don't Slack about issues, and Rowdy, don't tweet about issues to me directly. Thank you very much. Except for if it's a security exploit or anything, then yeah, it's pretty nice if you would first say it to me so I can fix my stuff and then release it in the open. Or, like this guy did, a guy, I don't mind, a declaration of love. He sent me a direct email with blah, 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 and I effing love you. So it was pretty funny. I showed it to my wife. She had a good laugh about it as well. So there was someone on Slack lately who asked me, what is actually fork? Well, this is a fork, but yeah, forking really in open source in GitHub is, well, pressing that button there at the top right, and it's really the first step in yeah, giving something back to a repository. Or if you don't like what's currently offered, you can, of course, change it in your own copy. So this is your copy in your account, and you can clone it locally, and then make changes to that copy. And then the most important step, always try to unfork your changes, because otherwise there's two very similar packages on the web. People get confused. So you may not agree with what they have, but try to have a conversation with the other maintainer of the upstream repository. So that will make everybody happy. So always try to unfork. The G is for GitHub. It has to be. That's my home. Their motto is build software better together. They've been around for almost 10 years. They have 30 million users and 60 million repositories. So on average, that's 2 repositories a person, I guess. Yeah, GitHub, that's where it is. I think that's the place where currently the most open source repositories are. There were a few others, but this is by far the most popular one. H has to be for Hauptversionsnummer Hinderungsangst. So that was a bit of German. Germany, by the way, will win the World Cup in 2018, so you already knew that probably. They always win. Yeah. But yeah, in Germany, you can just stick a few words together, right, to get a new word. So they were also really happy that Twitter lifted their 140-character limit. They can now fit 4 words in a tweet. Awesome.
May you repeat?
Oh yeah, I'm not German, by the way, so I just have to try it. Perhaps someone else is better at it. But Hauptversionsnummer Hinderungsangst. I think you have to shout a bit if you say it. So, but here are a few tips to overcome this fear. Because it's fear of bumping the major version number, and that's for good reasons as well. So there's something called Semver. You probably all know about this, but perhaps not what it really means. So there's this major and minor patch versions, and as an open source user, you really need to think about this. Because if you have a breaking API change, you generally want to bump the major version number, or you have some, like I have, NativeScript and Cordova plugins. You add a new platform. You may also want to do that as well, because the behavior on the other platform will change for your users. If it's just a regular addition to your package, then do a minor version upgrade, nothing really special. That's just regular updates. And then if you have some hotfix, mostly I'm using it for, do an upgrade of the patch version. And that the reason is because at the other end, if users use your package, they probably mostly pin, or at least I would do it, pin to the minor version. You can also pin to the major version, but then yeah, then you'll get changes in behavior without you really realizing it. And if you're working on a project with 3 colleagues, you may have different behavior in your project because they have other npm dependencies in their local installation. So you need to be careful about that. So if you're really anxious about it, you can also just pin to the specific patch version if you don't use any wildcards. And if you're really into that, you can also set that globally with npm config set safe-exec true. Then any npm package you install will just use the specific version and it will never get upgraded unless you really want to yourself. So, and if there's a major version bump, always make sure to check the README and the change log because probably something needs to be changed in your code as well. So GitHub's issue tracker is pretty nice, and you don't really need to use it for, well, software really. This is a guy, I found this linked to from the GitHub official page, who has put his house on GitHub. So he doesn't have any source code, unfortunately, but there are a lot of issues with his house. I found it really funny. He has 17 open issues, 115 closed, so he's a lot better at his house stuff than I am. And he's labeled everything, like the second one is remove the old thermostat in the hall. And if you press that electrics badge, then you can filter all issues about electrics. So that's pretty nice. And at the bottom here, you see he has a dripping rear gutter at the roof. So yeah, there's all kind of issues, and these are still open. And this is one issue I particularly liked. The door was hung the wrong way, so it opened like this instead of this, or the other way around. Doesn't really matter, but it was opened in July 2012, and it's still an open issue. Yeah, there are. That's a fun thing, right? So there are contributors here. They have commented on his issue. But yeah, so this guy said, or this guy, I don't know, it's a girl perhaps, in the green, any idea when you will fix this issue? It was 2 years later. So when I read this, I thought, okay, that must be his wife or something. And then this guy here with the purple avatar, he said, hey, is that your wife? My wife asks me the same thing all the time, so really funny. But still, there was this other guy, he said here he broke his toe because the door opened the wrong way. And he was really pissed off about it because he built it himself, his house. So here are the steps to fix that for you. If you ever get around to it, do it like this. And the original maintainer gave him a hard reaction because of it. So that's also open source, really cool. So if you're using the issue tracker yourself, then for maintainers, a few tips. I think it's okay to have open issues, like with this house, you don't need to fix everything right away. It's also, well, a good place to discuss about things, right? Yeah, it's okay to close issues if they're not complete when they're reported, but you also need to help your users a bit, of course. So it's a great way to there's a great way to add an issue template which users can fill. Well, but my personal experience is that at least 70% of people just blow away the template and then, well, they don't say it doesn't work, but they use a different format. But still, if it's decently reported, it's fine. So as a user, that's the most important thing, I guess. We're all developers, and probably the persons using my software are also developers. And as a developer, when we get an issue reported, we always ask for a reproduction path or some demo or at least good steps. So just don't say it doesn't work. Just act like you needed to fix it yourself. So provide a fiddle or a demo. I'm too fast again, but no problem. This was a slide for if you wonder if you have some software lingering on your own PC and it's really useful for your corporate app, for instance. Yeah, why not try to open source it, right? So others can use it, and you may also be able to slice it a bit differently so it's easier for you to reuse it yourself. So, and I've seen a lot of, in my case, NativeScript and Cordova plugins, which are just sitting there in corporate apps as a local plugin. And I really wonder why, well, why wouldn't you open source it? Because, wow, you created this awesome thing. I'd like to use it, yeah, but we keep it closed and try to push it out. Just do it, I'd say. You get to learn a lot of things. By the way, I think he was eating sand here, right? He was not really being awesome. Just didn't taste nice. So, but whatever you publish, keep it simple. Unfortunately, that's not the band playing tonight, but I heard it's a pretty good local band, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, keep it simple. I mean, if you ever create a package, make it easy for others to use. Don't create some rocket surgery package thing because nobody will understand it and you will for sure get a lot of issues in your repository. So think about your mom when you're trying to design an API, unless she's really smart, of course. Like mine, no, nah, well, yeah, she is. But she's not a programmer. So as part of the repository, yeah, try to add some demos and documentation and keep it concise, of course. And yeah, assume the user knows nothing, right? So add your assumptions and all the mistakes you made, because you will have seen also a lot of other people using your stuff. You probably know best what they don't really get, add it to the README so others will know it as well. We all make the same mistakes, right? So if you report an issue, yeah, don't try to report multiple issues in one ticket. And if you report, give me a PR, then try to keep it as simple as possible. The fewer lines, the better. It will be accepted way more quicker, and it's easier to review. And I actually had 2 repositories where someone added a new mobile platform to a plugin and do the TypeScript conversion at the same time. And those pull requests will never be finished. So that's a bit of a pity. Try to, yeah, break it up, right? License. You can't talk about open source without talking about licenses, but there's a lot to say about it, but it's rather boring, I find myself, but there's probably people really loving licenses. I don't. I just want to pick one and be done with it. So to make it a bit more fun, I created the license mini quiz, and if you win today, then you get to wear this new shirt, which is exactly the same as this one. You can choose if you want that one or this one, but I would take that one. This is a bit sweaty, this one. So first round of the license mini quiz. There are 5 rounds, and yeah, the first question here is, which was really mind-blowing to myself, really. What's the default license for a project on GitHub? Is it none? Or is it GPL 3.0? So please show me hands for none. That's the majority, I guess. And hands for GPL? That's a few as well. Okay, cool, nice. I didn't know anything of this myself, so it is actually none. So there's no license in your repository if you don't specify one yourself. And second question is, well, if a repository doesn't have a license, what does that mean? Does it mean you can do whatever you want with the code, or actually you can't do anything with the code as a user? So who thinks of the persons that had the previous question correctly answered? Sorry for the others. Who thinks you can do whatever you want with the code if there's no license? Sorry, you can do, yeah, sorry. You can do the green one, yes, yes. Okay, thank you. And the red one, you can't do anything with the code? That's a nice split. So you actually get to learn something I also learned when creating this presentation. If there's no license, you can't do anything with the code. So it's all under exclusive copyright by default, which kind of makes sense, right? It's your stuff, but you put it out in the open. So if you don't include a license, you can't use it, you can't modify it, anything, you can't ship it in your own app. So always look for a license being available in the repository. And yeah, it's a bit tricky because there are quite some licenses out there. So what do you think is the most popular open source license that's available? Is it either MIT or Apache 2.0? So this is a bit of a guess, right? But I have to narrow it down to one person. So who thinks the most popular one is MIT? Of the persons that were still in the race, huh? Okay, and who thinks it's Apache 2.0? Okay, so sorry, I will lose another bunch of you. So it's MIT, but it's a guess really, right? So this is the distribution of the most popular open source licenses. It's MIT, GPL, and then Apache 2.0. So we're up to round 4 now. This is also pretty interesting, and if you want to choose a license, you want to think for yourself, okay, what do I want my users to be able to do with it? So the more permissive your license is, the more they can do with it. So what's actually the most permissive license of these ones? Is it either MIT, the most popular one, or is it something called, I'm too far away, WT-FPL? So who thinks the most permissive one is MIT? I lost a lot of you already, I think. And who thinks it's WT-FPL? Okay, I think it's a nice distribution. I think 60% thinks WT-FPL. It's really pronounced because it's the do what the F you want to public license. You can do anything really, but it's used by only less than 1% of the open source projects. So the last one, how many different open source licenses are there? There are quite a few, yeah. Is it less than 50 or more than 50? And I already gave away it's not 50, so that's easy. So who thinks of people still running it's less than 50? I was afraid of that. And more than 50? Everybody, right? So okay, now I'm a bit of a pickle because you're right. And I have a lot of persons who want to fight for this t-shirt. So I think I have to narrow it down with an approximation question. So can you please shout out the number you have in your head? Just go ahead, people still running. 207? 1,000? Okay, no. It's a bit less. I just give hints, it's less.
80.
It's a bit more than 80, a bit less than that. It's between 80 and 89. I need a winner. I heard someone there, 83, and then there. So there's the winner. All right, after the presentation, come grab your t-shirt. Either this one or that one, you get to choose. Thank you for your cooperation. So there's a lot of licenses, and if you really want to figure out which one you need, there's this great website, choosealicense.com, and there's just a few easy questions, and then you'll know which one you want for your library. So let's continue to M, Markdown. Markdown is used to to create the README on GitHub, right, and to create the wiki. But you can also use it to file issues and add some documentation to your pull request, etc. And I often see, especially code not being properly formatted, which is a bit hard, gets a bit hard to read. So here are a few quick tips on Markdown formatting. Use the backticks to get inline formatting. Use triple backticks to create blocks of code, which you want to have nicely formatted. You can also indent it with spaces, but here's the party trick of 3 backticks. You get to say which language you're specifying, so you get color highlighting, which is very nice. And another thing is we all want to use bold and italic, right, to emphasize stuff. So I learned this, that if you do a single star or a single underscore, it's italics. And if you use double stars or double underscores, it's bold. And you can also combine them, like the one on the right, which gets a bit freaky. So you probably need to look that up. Another thing is these quote thingies, like this one by Abraham Lincoln. You need these, I don't know, greater than signs, right? And lastly, links. You can just paste links in your GitHub issue. It will automatically convert it to a clickable thing. Or if you want to give a link a nice name, you can use these brackets and parentheses. So that's GitHub flavored Markdown, actually. So then NPM, that's a very, 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 very popular package manager. As you can see by its numbers, there's 600,000 packages on it. So if you come to think of it, there's 60 million GitHub projects, right? And 600,000 NPM packages. So about 1%, well, if they even come from GitHub, about 1% is pushed to NPM. So that's to say that not everything on GitHub is JavaScript related, I guess. but it has 500 million downloads a day of all packages combined, which is insane. And if you add it up to a month, it's 15 billion. So wow, there's a lot of traffic. It's not only Netflix traffic going on, it's also NPM, I guess. That's bogging down the internet. And if you want to know about how is my individual package or user doing with all my packages combined, you can go to this nice website, npm-stat.com, where it aggregates the downloads over time. So that's a nice one. So here's a few tips if you actually use npm yourself, and you probably do if you're doing JavaScript. So actually this surprised me a couple of years ago, but of course it makes a lot of sense. You can't update a published package version. It would be hell if, I don't know, Lodash or something would just update something and throw an alert in it, and everybody would have that new broken version of Lodash. So you can't update packages, but you can remove them. But please don't, because perhaps you remember leftpad, that little library that everybody used, and then all the other packages were broken. And I think that there was a new maintainer who took over and then published it again, and then it was fixed. So don't remove them. And if you want to no longer maintain it, you can still add another owner to it and then leave yourself by using this command. So that's, I think, a better exit strategy than to just delete the package. So as a user of npm, I often wonder what versions of the package are up there on npm, and here's a command to do that. And if you add a --JSON to the end, you will actually not be limited to 100 versions of that package. So that's a nice trick as well. And yeah, you may wonder why or when I need to globally install something or just install it locally in my project. And I think that the tip here is if it's some command line package, then you want it globally, and otherwise you want it locally. Yeah, show all outdated dependencies in your project. It's a command in npm outdated. It's called npm outdated, but yeah, you really need to actively do that yourself. And later on in the talk, I'll give you a tip on if you want to be notified whenever something is outdated. So that's pull versus push, really. So yeah, I'm already at the O of open source. So what should this be about? I think, yeah, okay, the definition of open source, right? So I think the definition is computer software you can see the source of. I may be wrong. And what you can do with it depends on the license. Please always include one. And it's usually free. It doesn't have to be, but it usually is. P is for pull requests. So there was another dude in this case on Slack who wasn't really comfortable with the open source methods of PRs and opening GitHubs, which are totally get. So here's a few tips. If you submit an issue or a PR, always check open issues, because it's surprising how much duplicates you get as a maintainer in your repository. Please also always search the open and closed issues. And if you send a PR, then yeah, like I said before, just keep it simple, keep it concise. Try not to do multiple things in one PR, right? And I personally think that I had a great experience with submitting a PR to the NativeScript team, where not everything was up to their standards. And they didn't just say, okay, this is wrong, this is wrong. They really tried to educate me, help me running tests, for instance, how to add tests. Oh, you better do it this way because internally we do this and that. So really see it as an opportunity to educate. And oh, there's a trick that you can do with PRs. If you put anything like fixed or fixes or fixed or closed or closed in your text in your PR, then it will also automatically close any related issues as well. So that keeps the red tape work a bit to the minimum, right? But yeah, so there's a lot of issues, pull requests, burnout stuff. So if you ever think I want to quit all this, that's the cue about quitting. I get that. I won't, because although it's a lot of work, I really like to do it. So, but yeah, if you're quitting, then try to do it gracefully. Try to ask for a new maintainer for your repository, and perhaps there are alternative projects, and it may also be the reason that you stop because something else is better than just refer to that, right? Perhaps you can even help migrating with the other maintainer. In the meanwhile, try to merge at least critical PRs. But yeah, I usually, if I would do that, then I would leave the testing to others, and then just use a different branch, and then if it's okay, then merge it to master. And also, yeah, if you don't want that project anymore in your personal GitHub account, you can always move it to an organization, and you can move it to another maintainer. And the nice thing about GitHub is, if you move it to a different maintainer, if anyone has a reference to your URL directly, GitHub will take care of redirecting for you, so you don't need to worry about that as well. And if you publish to NPM, well, like I said before, you can add other users to the NPM package. You need to think about that as well. Oh, and the last one, that's actually this was released a few days ago by GitHub. If nobody wants your stuff, you don't really need to delete it. You can, but you can also choose to archive it, and that means your repository becomes read-only. And the only thing that can be done with it is forking it. So you won't get any new issues, and the nice thing is you can unarchive it. So that's a nice new addition. So the R is for reactions. So on the left you see these +1s, which happened a lot of times in the past, right? And at a certain point of time, GitHub added these reactions, these emoji. You can, at the top right, there's the smiley, and then you get to choose which emoji you want to react with. And it's not only to keep replies a bit more concise, but it's also these counters are nice, and you can also, well, these labels were for filtering, but these reactions you can use for sorting. So what's the most starred or hearted or thumbs up issue in my repository, so you can use that to decide what to work on next, right? So what will the S be? Oh no, not this guy again, sorry. I was looking at the top open source projects because that's also interesting, right? What are we talking about here? So these are the NPM packages, which are mostly downloaded. It was like 15 billion in total, but these take up quite a chunk. And these are also, you see a bit of the same packages here. These are also a lot dependent upon by other projects, so these are really popular. And on GitHub, there's also stats like this. You can see which are the most starred. And frankly, there's this free code camp I have never heard of, but it's probably my problem. But there's also Twitter, React, TensorFlow, and a new cool kit on the block Vue, which have a lot of stars. And the most forks, that's also an interesting one, because I thought that would be the same libraries, right? But I only see Bootstrap there and TensorFlow. But these other four, which are starred, the first, second, third, and fifth, these are tutorials. Especially the third one, the Octocat spoon knife, that's the official tutorial of GitHub on how to fork stuff, so that makes sense. So with 60 million repositories on GitHub, yeah, these are the most popular ones. The most popular is 50,000, 80,000, so quite a lot, right? Updates. So, yeah, this is a good question this user asked with a nice mustache. His mustache tickles a bit. How do I learn about updates in this GitHub repository? So, the answer is it depends on what kind of updates you really want. So I want to learn about updates to this dripping rear gutter of this house guy. So there's this button at the bottom right that you can hit subscribe on, and then you'll only get notifications in your email about this issue. So that's it keeps it a bit concise and not too much email spam. But if you want spam, you can press the watch button on the repo and yeah, just have GitHub send email about anything that happens in the repository. I usually unsubscribe to that. It's a bit overwhelming, because usually as a consumer of libraries, I only really want to learn about releases they've done. So there's a trick for that as well. If you would start a repository and there's a new release of, in this case native script Flashlight, there's this service called sybil.com, where, or sybbel, I think yeah, there's a bell logo, you can just log on with your GitHub account, and then any repository you start with that account will trigger an email upon a new release. So you'll only get a few emails you really care about. Yeah, volunteers. So most of OSS developers are volunteers. Not everybody. I have a large chunk of my stuff is sponsored, but not everything. So the rest of the stuff is also volunteer work. And there's always room for more. You may wonder, okay, yeah, but I don't know much about how to use this stuff. Or it doesn't really matter. All levels are absolutely welcome to join doing open source, of course. And even if you just review things or just comment on something. I have the same problem, that's okay. If you then say, okay, but I have this configuration, maybe you can figure out where the problem really is. So if you want to help do open source as well, or do more open source, then here are a few ways to help. So also joining a forum, or even Slack or something, where a lot of questions get asked about your stuff. It's really helpful if others also join in. They've used your library and they know what the problem probably is and can help others. So also answer questions on Stack Overflow or forums would be really nice. Don't be shy to step up and also comment on issues, of course. Review documentation. If documentation is good, if the API is good, then probably there will be less issues. So that's also very valuable to do. Then you can actually change documentation straight in your browser. GitHub has the tools for that as well. And review issues if you really like that repo and you want to help out. And just look at issues that are open. And if there's ways to reproduce it, then you make maintainers really happy. And send pull requests, but that's like level 10. If you really are up to stepping up, helping, send a pull request. By all means, go ahead, and I usually accept anything, really. If it doesn't break anything and it makes sense, I absolutely don't really care about code style or anything, because there are code style like TS-lint and stuff like that in the repository anyway, so that will be automatically fixed or checked. But I usually just merge anything. And there's also something called a pull request hack you may have heard of, which if it's kind of a decent pull request, you can give the person who gave it to you also commit access to your repository. And it may feel a bit tricky, but I've done it like 20, 30 times, and I never had a problem with anyone submitting garbage to my repo. So, but it will encourage them to come back and do more for you. So now we're up to the X, and I really didn't have any clue. I first had exit, and then the second one was the X, right? But I felt that was cheating, so I moved that to quit. But yeah, I have to really refer to ancient Greek for this. So xenial, or something, that's friendly relations between host and guest. So here's a few tips to be friendly. Yeah, again, just be yourself. Don't be a dick. Don't behave like Trump on Twitter, right? And also add a code of conduct to your repository to enforce these rules. And actually, that's pretty easy, which I found out. Here's a little movie. You can create a new file in your repository, and you type the name, it's code of conduct, and then at the top right, there's a button that appears. Then you get to choose one or two. First one is for small projects, the second is for large. You get to review it, you can add your email address to it, and now you submit the code of conduct. You can read it again, and now I'm going to commit this new file to my repo. Didn't have to do this, change the comment. You can choose if you want to go to master or create a pull request in a different branch. So in this case, it's a new pull request. Didn't really matter, just for demo. And now you have a pull request with a code of conduct for your repository. So that's pretty easy to do, and I hopefully it will prevent guys like these coming in and trashing the place. Trolls. Well, at least, yeah, I had a few trolls on my repos, but I must say it hasn't been too bad, and there's also tools to handle them. Yeah, just don't try to get into an argument. I usually reply once and then, oh, hell, okay, you're just here to trash talk or something. You can remove comments if you like, and you can even block them entirely. I think I've only blocked one person. Can't really recall why, but I didn't really like him. So, after all this, you might wonder, why on earth contribute to open source? That was my best animation, by the way. So sharing stuff feels good. Yeah, it does. I like it. You get to learn a lot of new technical skills, but also soft skills. You need to interact with a lot of people. It's online still, but still, it's yeah. I think you really grow as a developer if you start to do open source. It's good for your resume. Actually, nobody looks at my LinkedIn, I guess. The only recruiter mail I get, which I always ignore, if it's not automated, then they mention my GitHub in their email, so it's pretty good for your resume. Yeah, do paid support. There were a few tips to try and do that. And yeah, become famous and get to speak in Bulgaria, right? So actually, that's already a wrap. And yeah, for those of you who doze off or worse, you actually kept your breath and fell asleep or worse. This slide, yay. You can wake up now and read this summary. And for all others, thank you very much for listening.